Well, hello everybody, BugEater64 here, and today we're going to be in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we're going to be flying the AzurPoly C-160. Now, we're going to be making a flight from Corpus Christi, Texas up to Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. 309 mile flight. Now, the biggest reason for this, one, it is going to be an FS Airlines flight, so we can make a little money with it, but also I really want to look at the fuel system. In previous flights, I've had a problem with running out of fuel at less than 300 miles. Now, I found out that the aircraft was only draining fuel from its outermost wing tank, which is the Bravo tank. Once that tank emptied, the engines would kit. It did not use fuel from the Alpha tanks, which are the center wing tanks. This has 6 fuel tanks in sets of 2. You got Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. And Charlie is the center line tanks, but they are not connected to the engines. Charlie is strictly that fuel goes into Alpha tanks for use in the engines, and Alpha and Bravo are the only tanks used by the turbos. So, having identified that problem, what I am going to do, and I didn't find this in the manual, I just decided I'm going to try a new way of using the fuel system. It may be proper, it may not be proper. I haven't found out anything about it, and it's not in the manual how this system works, although the manual does talk about how to transfer fuel. So, with that, that's what I'm going to be doing the biggest part of this flight about. It's, a relatively short flight, but let's get in the cockpit, let's get this bird up and running, and let's get this flight going. It's going to be a beautiful day to fly. It's one of the clear weather days we've had in quite a while in Texas. So, let's get on our way, and I'll see you inside. Well, hello everybody, and here we are at Corpus Christi. And we're getting ready to take the AzurPoly C-160, and we're going to fly it up to Dallas-Fort Worth. Today's flight is going to be an official flight, but it's also a test to see if my procedures for filling the tanks and using all the gas instead of some gas, which I've had a problem with, will work. So, first of all, let's get the FS Airlines client up and running, so we can make sure we're ready to go. In previous flights, I could only use fuel out of the Bravo tank, which is the furthest out tanks. I'll show you here in just a minute. Here we go. We've got fuel in A, B, and C, which is what is the default setting. Now, what we're going to do here is set that to pumps. I'm going to lower this down. We've got too much fuel for this flight. So, we're going to remove fuel, and I'm going to probably, let's see, it says we need about, I think it was 4,200 kilos, because this being a French-German collaboration in this aircraft, they do everything in kilos and liters, and so it said we needed like 4,200 kilos, and a kilo is 2.2 pounds. So what I'm going to leave is about 11,000 pounds of fuel, and that's evenly dispersed through the fuel tanks. So let's check that. Okay, we've got that's all looking good. 11,000 pounds of fuel, so we should be good to go on this, and as we fly, we'll see about how to transfer the fuel, and I'll talk a little bit more about how the tanks are set up. But for this, what we're going to do when we get to starting the engines is we're only going to, the procedure shows that we are supposed to turn on all 8 of our fuel switches, 4 for the right engine and 4 for the left engine. Well, today, first we got our ground power set up, which was not going to be on very long because we'll get the APU up and running here pretty quick. So first of all, let's get the batteries on. Okay, so that's all looking good. And that's our Garmin. We'll get some more power and we'll get the 430 set up, although it doesn't really work well. Okay, so get the APU turned on. There's 2 ways to do that. You can either use those switches, which I just flipped, and you can see in the upper center, right center panel, the APU's coming on. It's powering up right there. Or you can click that EFB panel where it says APU, and that'll switch it on and off. Alright, so generator 5 is for the APU, so we're going to flip that on. Now we've got that power. We'll go ahead and do our nav aligning for the system. Turn off ground power. Get ready to start the engines. And as you see, we've got only the A tanks on the left and right side are turned on. I'm not going to use the B tanks, because in the past what it does, it'll take the fuel from the B tanks, but it won't take the fuel from the A, so it's really kind of straight. So we're going to start using this flight using only the A fuel tanks. Alright, so we're going to get ready to start the right engine. Conditioners are set at idle. Okay, so that's looks like we're getting a good start on the right engine. Looks like the right engine has settled down. And now we can get ready to do the left engine. Taxi lights on. And get the MFDs up lighting so we can see. transponder on. Okay. And that's our weather radar panel up there. See the grid. It doesn't work, but we can see the grid anyway. So let's go ahead. Engines are up and running properly, so we'll just close the safety covers and turn off the starter. Okay, get the generators all on, all 4 of them. And then we can get ready to shut down the APU. So generator 5 is off. And the APU will spin down. As you can see on our EFB. Now let's look at the fuel. And we can see that, let's look here. Yeah. Only fuel from A tanks is being used. Let's go ahead and set up our flight plan. And this is just going to be a direct flight to Dallas Fort Worth. Wrong wheel. Alright. Let's do the flight plan. Alright, that's set. Okay. So we know where we're going. We'll get there. And we can see that the only tank the fuel is being used out of are the A tanks.
Corpus Ground, November 327 Whiskey Sierra with golf request taxi for takeoff, touch and go.
November 327 Whiskey Sierra taxi 2 and hold short of runway tree 1 via taxiway Bravo Alpha. Contact tower on 119.4 when ready.
Taxi 2 and hold short runway tree 1 using taxiway Bravo Alpha 7 Whiskey Sierra.
Okay, so that looks like we're about ready to go. Alright, so let's get taxied down to the end of the runway. Now, C tanks, Charlie, those 2 tanks are not connected to the engines. So those tanks you have to drain into Alpha, and then Alpha and Bravo tanks are set up to actually feed fuel to the engines for use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the Alpha tank, then I'm going to switch to Bravo, and while I'm flying on Bravo tanks, we'll do a fuel transfer from Charlie to A, refilling the Alpha tanks. We're going to see how that works. I haven't tried this procedure before, but we're going to. But what I did find in earlier flights is that if I flew the way the aircraft is supposed to, using both Alpha and Bravo tanks, it would drain Bravo tanks and then the engine would shut down. So I don't know if that's a bug or why that happened, but it did. So I'm going to try a procedure to see if I can complete this flight loaded with cargo, which is only a 305 mile flight to Dallas from Corpus Christi, and see if I can do that using this procedure. So it's going to be fun to find out what's going on. And we've got a jet coming in. So we're about ready to go. Flap turn takeoff configuration.
Corpus Tower, November 327 Whiskey Sierra, ready at runway tree 1, touch and go.
November tree 27 Whiskey Sierra, altimeter 29.9er, 2 wind calm, left touch and go approved. Cleared for takeoff runway tree 1.
Cleared for takeoff runway tree 17 Whiskey Sierra.
So we're ready to go. Let's get out on the runway. Get the landing lights on. And that was a bit of a wide turn. Here on the runway. Okay. Runner up. And we got power. Brakes are released. Airspeed's alive. And rotate. Okay, gear up. This aircraft will climb easily at 2,000 plus feet a minute, but I'm just going to take my time. I don't want to push the engines. Don't want to push using too much fuel too fast. So with that, let's go ahead. Our heading will be about 004, I believe, or 03. We're going to go with an altitude of about 7,000 feet. Trust me, I'm not going to get up to there. Okay. And we're going to speed things up a little bit. Okay. So we're doing a heading of 004. And as we can see, we're only using fuel out of the A tanks. Landing lights are off. And this is one of the few days lately that we've had clear skies, so that's kind of nice. Beautiful clear morning to take off. Okay, back to normal speed. Let's see what we've got. This panel right here, that is going to be our fuel transfer panel. And to transfer fuel from, we're going to flip that switch, that one and the one at the bottom. Those 4 switches are going to be the ones we use to transfer fuel from Charlie tanks to Alpha tanks. So right now we're going to speed up and use up more of that
Houston
fuel.
Center, United 1166 flight level 350. United 1166 Houston Center, continue to meet us as planned. 7 Whiskey Sierra, contact Houston Center on 135.05. Good day.
135.057 Whiskey Sierra. Houston Center, November 327 Whiskey Sierra, 7,000 feet.
SkyWest 507 tree climb and maintain 2,100 feet.
And these
November
are
tree 27 Whiskey Sierra,
our tank
Houston Center altimeter
gauge really.
29.92. Continue as planned.
If I didn't want to use the EFB, I could just watch those gauges over there. So we're going to switch over to Bravo tanks, shutting off Alpha. Okay, so now we're only flying on the Bravo fuel tanks. And we'll go ahead and start to see if we can do the fuel transfer. And let's see, okay. That switch, see, and I didn't mean to turn that one on. Okay, that switch. So now we're transferring fuel from the Charlie tanks. You'll see them spinning down into the Alpha tank. So basically I'm just going to drain Charlie down to about 42 kilos of kilo of fuel and put it all into Alpha. And you can see in the EFB the Alpha tank is filling and the Charlie is emptying. And we're flying only using the Bravo tanks. Okay, so the tanks are transitioned. So now we have plenty of fuel in Alpha and Bravo to complete this flight. More than enough. Okay, so let's move on to Dallas. Here we are. We're in our downwind portion of our Dallas approach. So we're going to go ahead and get some lights on so people can see us coming in. And we'll be landing on runway 18 left. See one of the aircraft in the distance in front of us with its anti-collision lights flashing. So, normally I would fly out. There's a body of water directly in front of us. Normally I would fly all the way out there, turn around, and come back. Runway 18 left is just at the edge of this lake to our left. So what I would do is just line up with the edge of that lake and fly into the runway. Just way over there. But today, because of the amount of traffic and they give me clearance, we're going to be doing a short final.
Cleared to land runway 18 left 7 Whiskey Sierra.
Okay, I've gotten my clearance. So, we're going to turn right now. Instead of going out to that lake, turn around and come back, we're going to turn onto base and then turn to a short final. Follow that airplane in. I almost wanted to land on the wrong runway. Okay, flaps coming down. Up. And we're down. Just let it roll and then we'll go to reversers. Alright, we'll get the flaps up and head for our parking.
One 128.8257 Whiskey Sierra.
Conditioners to idle. Makes it a little easier to control the speed when I'm taxiing that way.
DFW ground November 327 Whiskey Sierra taxi to parking. Taxi proceeding to general aviation parking using taxiway Foxtrot Tree Foxtrot for cross runway Tree 6 right Whiskey Mike cross runway Tree 6 left Whiskey Mike Charlie Whiskey Kilo 7 Whiskey Sierra.
And I'm glad you got all that, because I sure didn't. So, we're going to go down this way and we pull into parking like right now. And here we are. We're going to park right here. This is not general parking, but it's where I want to park. Okay, so parking brake on, and we're done. Alrighty then, well, there you have it. The flight went extremely well. No real issues there, except I almost landed on the wrong runway because I wasn't paying attention. But that's just my old self being myself. But using the fuel system the way we did, it worked just fine. Like I said, I don't know if this is the proper way to use this fuel system on this aircraft. But again, there's only been one update to the aircraft since it was released, and there's more to come. Hopefully they'll do a little bit more with the navigation systems, and so I can actually fly a GPS flight plan. But that being said, the fuel system works fine. If we want to, we can make long flights. This aircraft has a huge range, according at well over 2,000 nautical miles, and according to the sim, looking at the information there, it's like 4,000 miles. So somewhere in there, that's a long flight in this aircraft which has a cruising speed of about 200 knots at an engine RPM of 1,305. So, there's a lot of information still to glean and research for this aircraft, but it's fun. I really enjoy this airplane. I love the challenge of it, and that's just great fun. So with that, the flight was complete. We made good money, about $800,000 for our FS airline, and so I've got no real complaints, and I learned a lot. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, this is Bug Eater 64, and as always, remember, safe flying.